month's journalism competition, June 1, for which he gets a 2,000 cash prize. Unfortunately, he's not here, yeah.
I think he must forfeit.
Or not being here.
Don't embarrass me, Ben.
Just to motivate people to enter this competition, to get a 2,000 cash prize, it's a 500 rand Deriba voucher, Deriba hotel voucher, and a prize from SANParks. And prizes from SANParks are no small. So please enter the competitions. As you all know, we awarded the president the newsmaker of the year, and he's been quite busy. So we're still waiting for the date, which we'll inform you as soon as we know. And then the July photographic competition will be launched soon, so keep an eye on your emails. And then our next networking forum will be in July 25, hosted by Sustainable Cotton Cluster. So please save the date. And we also want to announce as the executive committee that we have finally been registered as an NPO. Thanks to the hard work of our secretariat. It hasn't been an easy thing to get through to, but we finally have. And a reminder, please, to everybody to pay membership fees. So over to Glenn.
Thank you so much.
Oh, and he's going to make his presentation, and then just to enable everybody to have time to chat with him, he will not take any questions. Any questions that you have, and I'm sure there'll be a lot, you can direct either to him, raise over there.
If there's questions about the presentation, we'll take. But anything outside.
Anything outside of the presentation, be it lions.
There will be questions about lions.
Can we keep that for the end and then the rest of the time? Thank you very much.
Thank you, much appreciated. Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for this opportunity. The CEO does send his regrets. Unfortunately, he ended up having to go to the Kruger auction down in Addo, where we auction off along with other protected area and game farmers, various surplus animals. So he's down there at that event. And he asked me to step in, but it's always an honor to speak to you. You can go to the first slide. So before I get onto this, I know the journalists don't want boring stuff. The first presentation was about our next 5-year strategy and what we present to Parliament in terms of our objectives, and I thought that you could read that on our internet. I mean, you can go there, see what's on there, and you know what our annual performance plan is. But I also know there's a lot of interest in other issues, so I'm trying to touch on some of those issues that have been topical, and we'll go through that. So just quickly the mandate. I think it's important, once again, just to stress: conserve, protect, control, and manage. It's quite a broad, complex thing we have to do, given the current circumstances in protected areas of conservation, not only in South Africa, but worldwide. Thank you. National parks around the country, you can clearly see. Important to note that out of South Africa, there are over 509 state-owned terrestrial protected areas, 25 marine protected areas, managed by 13 different state authorities. That is a big challenge. Okay? Often people will say, hear about something in KZN and ask SANParks why it's like that. But we don't manage any parks in KZN. And I think that's something in the long term which the government really, can you go back?
Go back.
Back again. I think the government has got to try to address some of those issues. If you look at we're managing 19 of the parks, about 4 million hectares in total, and 67% of state-owned land protected areas is under SANParks management. Our financials, last year we raised 2.9 billion rand in revenues out of tourism operations mainly. However, I can tell you now, the majority of that is not sufficient to run our national parks. It's a black hole conservation. There's never enough money. Out of the national parks, 5 make money, so those 5 have got to subsidize the other national parks. So Kruger had about a 200 million rand surplus this last year, and that of course gets split amongst other national parks. So if we had to take just Kruger's revenue, for example, keep it in the Kruger could probably do okay on its own. But unfortunately we have other protected areas, but at the same time, some of them are actually more valuable in terms of biodiversity, like the succulent Karoo, than savanna. So that's the trade-off we have to make. There we are. Next one. Key issues in terms of national priorities, important to touch on. Economic transformation and job creation. So in terms of WP programs, about 5,400 people at the moment are employed through that program, along with our just over 4,500 staff, permanent staff, employed in national parks. We're a very important economic catalyst. If you think of protected areas, where they lie, apart from the likes of Table Mountain, maybe Addo, which is close to PE, but the majority are in rural areas. And they play very important catalytic roles in terms of the economy. If you have to take, for example, the Kruger economy, and what it creates in that area away from Limpopo and from Mpumalanga, it would have a huge impact on the GDP of those two provinces. So it's important to understand that we're not just about protected areas and conservation, we play a very important economic role. And recently, the implementation, and in particular the new management plans being rolled out, of which Kruger is one, is an integrated land use approach, where we look at what's happening outside, how we can work together outside with the government, with traditional authorities, with the communities in those areas to create better economic benefits. Before, we worried about what was up to the fence. We cared about in the park, we didn't care about outside the park. That has got to change over time. If people outside don't benefit, conservation won't stay. Our Western neighbours don't always agree with that concept. Okay, they believe in preservation versus conservation. It's messaging we as a country in Southern Africa have got to get out there more clearly. And this comes through regional cooperation, that we as together, in the SADC states particularly, start working on our conservation operations together, our trans-frontier conservation areas, making them happen. It's all very well having treaties and all these things if you're not implementing the intent of those treaties, because the intent is actually amazing. And that we have to do in all our trans-frontier parks and work together. So we are moving animals, for example, into Zanaf National Park at the moment in Mozambique to help with the restocking there of animals as part of that protected area. And those things we have to keep doing and working with our partners in the countries around us. Thank you. In terms of education and skills development, we take about 140,000 learners through our parks every year in terms of environmental education. We're trying to step that up at the moment as well. Very important aspect in terms of the long-term view of conservation, and that people can buy into the concept of conservation. Key challenge we're facing at the moment is, and under that heading of building safer communities, is firstly looking after resources. Resources such as rhino, elephant, abalone, pangolin, they are actually our country's assets, and we must protect those assets like gold and diamonds. And unfortunately, they've never had the same value, but these days it's something we have to look after in those terms. We have the criminal elements on Table Mountain. Visitor safety, big issue, has huge impact on tourism. The protests happening in the roads leading to some of our national parks around service delivery have major impact. These things in terms of safety for visitors, safety for tourists is very important, that we play our role, but we have to have an all government approach to address these issues. And of course, dealing with governance and accountability, we know how important that is, ensuring that we deliver according to our mandate, and that we are transparent in our process. And touch wood, for the last how many years now? At least 14 years that I'm aware of, we haven't had a qualified audit. So it's very important that we stick to that. So in terms of difficult map to see, this is the organization strategy in one slide. And essentially we have these key areas. Don't worry about trying to read it. Essentially we have these strategic goals that need to deliver on three key major focus areas. Sustainable conservation, diverse and responsible tourism, which is our funding strategy, because we get very little in terms of government funding for conservation, so we have to fund it out of tourism, and then socio-economic transformation. Those are the three major goals we have to deliver on. They're done through these key programs, and then of course we've got all the supporting aspects in terms of our scorecard that need to deliver on those key goals. So the key goals. Firstly, sustainable conservation. That's dealing with ensuring that we look after the goose. Without the goose, tourism is not going to thrive either. So we've got to look after what we've got. And there are variations of that. So a lot of people want to keep the parks as they were in 19 footsack, but they have to adapt. Okay? They have to adapt. You cannot keep things the same. We've got to remain relevant. And sometimes that's hard for people to swallow. But you've got to do it in a responsible way, and hence the alignment to the minimum standards of responsible tourism and implementing those measurement tools to measure that. And that comes down to things like electricity consumption, implementing solar farms in some of our parks at the moment. We've done that. Water consumption, making sure that we reduce our water consumption. So being responsible about what we do, but being able to be transparent to show people how we are managing that better. In terms of responsible tourism, the large part of that, of course, is delivering the economic return, not only in the parks, but to places outside the park. So if parks are doing well, then the communities around the parks should also do well, because people are going to come to those areas. But the infrastructure outside has to be there as well. And that's where government, in its responsibilities, must also deliver. Socio-economic transformation, key issue, of course, we all have to focus on that. And make sure that we actually deliver on these things. We talk about it a lot, not always easy to implement, and that's something which we have to all work hard on. Making sure we're financially stable. So far we haven't needed a bailout. Touch wood, it's not going to happen, and we'll keep managing our finances as well as we have been, and we're very proud of that as well. And then of course, capability advancement is the last one. That's really to make sure we have the best possible skills in all fields to deliver on the mandate of the organization. Thank you. Few conservation highlights from the last year. An extra 5,350 hectares. Not always easy to grow conservation areas and cost money. First, sometimes you've got to buy the land. But maybe the new expropriation without compensation might help us. Then, of course, the establishment of a new national park, which is fantastic. The square kilometre array, 130,000 hectares, which is going to be managed by SANParks, the entire area. Very valuable land in terms of conservation, and very interesting because it's going to be one of the first dark sky parks in South Africa. In other words, no noise, no light, very important for astronomy and a different type of conservation. So that's very exciting going forward. Kruger National Park, very tedious process. Every 10 years, all parks do a park management plan. Given the interest in Kruger National Park, instead of a year process, it was an 18-month process. Recently, it was signed off by the acting minister, that state minister Hannekom, last year in November, and we're in the process of implementing that plan. But it drastically changes the view of how we have to manage protected areas into the future. And please, it's important everybody read the plan, understand what's in the plan, because that's how you hold us accountable. We have to deliver what's in the plan. So read it and hold us accountable. Cultural heritage, always sort of worry about the fluffies, the hairy things, all that, not so much cultural heritage. Now we're starting to really focus on this, and I think there's an incredible potential, always has been there. We've never really driven that potential. Makungupwe is a good example, doing very well, but Kruger has over 1,000 rock art sites. We don't show the tourists any. Okay? How many knew there were rock art sites in Kruger National Park? That many. Okay? Very few people know that it's because we don't show people. We're worried about the animals. So we've got to change that. It's an incredible asset to us. And then, of course, research is very important to us. Historically, we've been very good at research, and our scientific services have been very well established. And And that also, making sure we learn from the research and apply that research is very important. And that's also got to be a part of how we manage our parks, based on scientific research. And of course, we are respected internationally. Only last week I had Clemson University out with us looking at what we're doing in terms of tourism in national parks, and they're learning from us to apply in some of the US national parks. So it's one of the, we always think other other countries may be doing better than us, but sometimes I think we do very well, and we must share that with other countries. The topic everybody also wants to know about: are we winning this war? And this is the numbers of rhinos being poached up until the end of 2018. We are going in the right direction. It's what we're calling a very moderate win, certainly far from where we need to be. To have 420 rhinos still killed in a year is far too few. Okay. We're estimating it in the sort of mid 300s this year, based on the current trends at the moment. But it still means we are having just more than one rhino killed a day. And I think people just understand that every day there are incursions, up to 3 to 4 incursions a day still. So as much as we arrest people, it continues. And I think people are getting a bit fatigued about hearing about this. But we must keep the pressure on. People need to know about it. Our rangers, it's a major challenge for us. If you think of a military situation, is soldiers go into what they call a theatre for a period of time, maybe 3 months, 6 months, they're then relieved. Our rangers have been doing this since 2008, just with their annual leave. Every year, day in, day out. It's not sustainable. And I think something we're going to end up doing damage to conservation if we don't start dealing with those issues. There's huge psychological impacts on them at the moment. It's not very pleasant, and we need to understand and support them, and we're doing all we can from a wellness perspective. The other one was elephant poaching. Mostly in the north of the park. So as you know, rhino in the 60s, there were no rhino in Kruger National Park in the 60s. They were reintroduced, grew over to around 12,000 rhino. And I'll touch on numbers now. And doing very well. And then the poaching started. But most of the rhino were brought into the south of the park, and they're bred there. And slowly but surely distributed into the north of the park. So there's still limited numbers in the north of the park. However, as the rhino numbers in the north of the park are completely wiped out, because they have been virtually, okay, we're now rhino really more in the south of the park, then of course turning to elephant poaching as the next step. Okay, so this has been the elephant poaching trajectory, very low until then, and now starting to pick up. Directly aligned to where rhino numbers started going down, elephants started picking up. I've got good news. So far for the year, we are around about 7 poached. Okay, so we've 7. So we've directed a lot of teams up in that northern area, as well as working with the Mozambican authorities, and they've done very well preventing from coming from that. And so I think that is a huge job. We're getting that under control at the moment. Okay. Poachers arrested. This is just 17 to 18. 190 to 233 poachers arrested. So we can arrest as many as we want. Then more will come because it's so valuable. So this is not the solution, and we know it's not the solution. Firearms taken out of the system. Okay, the slide's not very good, 83 to 89. But we can take as many firearms out of the system, they keep coming. Where are they coming from? Okay. The numbers, other parks, so we might have a decreasing issue, and I'll show you that in Kruger now. It shows the other park with the 3 different subspecies of rhino. In parks, increasing, our southwest black rhino increasing, doing very well. In smaller parks, of course. South central black rhino 80, and southern white rhino 340, increasing in our other parks and breeding very well. So that's sort of our where we keep them for the long term. Look after the small areas. Easier to manage, easier to secure. This last financial year we had 3 rhinos poached in other parks. It's the first time we've had them poached in other parks, and we had 3. All inside jobs. All inside jobs. Okay? Majority of the Kruger poaching now is also related to inside work, corruption and collaboration with poachers by our own staff. Okay? Let's go to tourism. Sorry, let's go back to the. No, that's fine. So I wanted to show you guys. Sorry. In Kruger, roughly, so remember in Kruger, we don't count every individual animal, very difficult. So they do a block count, and they get a range through a scientific calculation of what they count over that period, and they extrapolate it. So in terms of black rhino, between 151 and 441 is the extrapolation after the block count. So roughly about 300 black rhino, down to, remember I mentioned about 12,000, up to the most we had in the park. We're down to estimated between 2,994 and 5,7, which takes you to about 4,120 rhinos left out of the 12,000 we had. So we're going the wrong way. We're in trouble. Okay? Now to tourism. So you may have seen in the media recently the country has taken a bit of a knock in terms of tourism as well. There are various reasons for that. Residual in some cases in terms of the water issues in Cape Town, the visa issues, but we felt it as well. Interestingly, in terms of, in some parks it was international, others it was domestic that were affected, but you can see it's a concern that we're going the wrong way. First time in also over 10 years that we've actually seen a dip of numbers of people visiting parks. Thank you. The key parks in terms of numbers, all, so Clever Mountain, Kruger, Garden Route, West Coast, Addo, all showing downturns in terms of total visitors. Key challenges from a conservation perspective, mining and poorly managed development is impacting and impeding expansion of those protected areas. Big issue at the moment, you will have heard of the mining around near Crocodile Bridge area that's a mining application there at the moment, which we've registered interest in affected party and don't want it there. It's in a very sensitive zone and right on the Crocodile River, which already does not keep its ecological flow in terms of the volume of water required for that to be a healthy system. Disease control. Currently as well, one of the challenges is because of foot and mouth and TB, which is naturally endemic in some of the herbivores. During the drought, we picked up some TB in rhino, and because of that, Kruger is under quarantine. So currently, we cannot move any rhino out of Kruger National Park. So we can't move into safe areas. So we've got to protect them as best we can in the park, and that's because of disease control. So just another issue to make life more difficult. River management, major pollution coming down into our rivers. Extraction in terms of too much water being taken out upstream, so not enough water flowing into the park. We do have ecological reserves, which are set by law, but they're not always adhered to. The policing in some of the rivers are not that easy. But we did very well in terms of that in the drought, and most of our rivers flowed right through the last big drought because of that, managing that. But certain parks like the Crocodile, certain rivers like the Crocodile are always below because of the extraction upstream. Sand mining causing major illegal, mainly coming out of the rivers, causing a lot of silting up of the rivers, which is also not good for the flow of the river and the biodiversity within the rivers. Wildlife crime, major biodiversity impact naturally. The other challenge here is our rangers spend all the time anti-poaching, not doing conservation work. That's what they do now. They're no longer conservationists, they're anti-poaching. Huge challenge in the long term for us. All our new young rangers, when they come in, they don't get trained as conservationists, they get paramilitary training. This has huge impacts in the long term. Big things, collusion and corruption. As I said, there's no ways the poachers could come in and do what they do without internal help. And they are being, so we're at the process now of removing all mobile phones from rangers in the field, so they cannot collaborate from the field to poachers to the land. And this is what's happening. To say, I'm not in this area now, you can come in. Okay, so this issue is what's our biggest problem to try and address at the moment. So the enemy within does huge damage. The financial impacts are huge as well. Kruger National Park, our budget in 2011 was 50 million for ranger services. This year is over 250 million. It's a quarter of our budget is just on anti-poaching. So we can't do road maintenance, we can't do tourism infrastructure maintenance, because it's all going to anti-poaching. So when do we say enough is enough? It's a huge challenge for us. And this results in this. And also starts evolving impacting on visitor safety, on service delivery if you've got poor infrastructure. It's a big challenge. And then, of course, as I mentioned, a big concern we have right now is this drop in tourism in the country as a whole. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, colleagues, maybe we can take a few questions. The questions must be linked to the presentation.
And the lions, if you want.
Thank you so much. Franz Loma Chapter from Progressive and Liberal Researchers. One thing that I picked up in your presentation is that the challenge you face mostly in your around your parks, it's protests. And the question around that is, what is it that you do in the communities around the parks where you operate in terms of the social responsibility initiatives? Take, for example, a farmer there in a particular or beyond a particular village. The farmer has got water, has got electricity. And the community where he drives through does not have water, does not have electricity. Imagine what will happen in that scenario. I'll just go down to Bushbuck Ridge, around Bushbuck Ridge, where you also have one park, which is Kruger National Park. Bushbuck Ridge, the main challenge is water. And in that community, but I'm not channeling you only to Bushbuck Ridge, as I asked on my question. What is it that you're doing in that area to actually help the community address the water crisis, which then goes to the situation where you normally have a protest around Kruger towards Kruger. Yes, towards the gate, where you even have the road tag and so on. What is it that you
maybe 3 questions at a time?
Thank you.
Yes, I would like to know, you said that you are working on the cultural aspects of the parks and to bring them more to the fore, to make it another like tourist attraction for to get more people into the park. What exactly does that plan entail? Are you there where you can say you have a plan, or is this just like a mega city dream?
One more question. Please tell us who you are.
Okay, sorry, Lila from SABC Radio.
So the name?
SABC?
Lila, SABC
I
Radio.
got Lila.
I'm also from SABC.
Oh, no.
And your salaries?
When the fences were laid down in the beginning of the century, what was the impact of that fences being laid down towards Mozambique and Zimbabwe regarding poaching?
Sorry, not just rhino poaching and elephant poaching, bushmeat poaching.
So we have 3 questions from Lila and
Thank you. Absolutely. So, in terms of the protest issues, we have 7 community forums that operate around the parks that we engage with communities as well as, and then we also the traditional authorities. However, I don't believe it's sufficient. Okay, that's the one element of it. So in the revision of the park management plan, we visited all the communities right around the park to get input. The one thing that the community said to us was, you were here 8 years ago to give input in your last plan. We haven't heard from you since then. So why must we give you input? Which is absolutely true. So when we committed to say we're going to come back every year and tell you what we've done, and if we haven't done it, why we haven't done it, there was a lot of buy-in. The key challenges is that a lot of what's been expected of us is actually not our role. So from a budget perspective, our budget is what's in the park. That's our mandate up to the fence. We take 1% levy of all our tourism income, moving up to 2% now, where that money, which is a very small amount, but it goes into developing opportunities within the park. We've rolled out quite a few science labs around Kruger. That was at one stage of demand. But often people say, but is that really the demand? Did you decide that's the demand, or did the community decide that's the demand? From a water perspective, that came out as a major issue in the park management plan input. We have done one project in Belfast where we've developed the whole water infrastructure. The whole plant was put in, but the connections from the plant to the community never followed, which was the municipality's job. So you can put the infrastructure in, if the rest is not put in place to reticulate to the communities, what's the point? So what we've done in the new park management plan is we've put a strategy together and we've looked at every community, from the north to the south. We've looked at what the opportunities are, whether it's game farming, dropping the fence further, moving it out, allowing animals in there so they can be part of the community, part of the conservation mandate, working with cattle owners in terms of huge cattle owning numbers in those areas. How do we work with them? We've got a project around that at the moment where we are helping with the rangeland, improving rangelands, they get more value for capital, and in fact we take the cattle through our abattoir so they get more value for the meat. So we've been doing that as well. But the challenge is we can't have this thing where you go in, you do something and you leave again. Something's got to happen afterwards. So in the process now, and with the new minister, is going to engage with the premiers and the MECs of different provinces, where we can all align according to the SEDs of each municipality, who does what, when and how. So we're not doing it in silos. We agree, these are the projects, this is the role we will play, these are the roles others will play. And that should happen around all parks. Historically, the last park management plans, there were no SEDs in place in those areas. And those are now all being incorporated into the parks. But
May I request that on that?
Sorry, Franz, let's not create a
I'm happy to discuss that.
Yeah. But let's take other questions. We'll come back to you.
The second one was around cultural heritage. So the Mapungubwe example around cultural heritage has been quite good in terms of developing the park around cultural heritage. The challenge with Mapungubwe is it's quite far. So getting people to go and experience it is very difficult. So we've got now this last board approved the new cultural heritage plan with what's required in terms of budgets as well as manpower. And that is to basically expose sites in the park. We have some that you can go to, Chulumela, Masarini, for example, in Kruger. In other parks, you've got Makara, you've got rock art sites and so on. How do you get people to go and see them and make it a tourist attraction? So on a game drive, part of the game drive is going to a cultural heritage site. So that's got to be part of our day-to-day operations. Before, it was seen as somebody wants to go and see it and you would facilitate it. It must be part of the business. And that's what's changing now in terms of it being seen as part of the business. And then in terms of the fences, so the dropping of the fences were not the entire fence. It was sections of fence up in the north of the park, which was then linked to a place called Kutana 16, which eventually became the Great Limpopo, or the Limpopo National Park in Mozambique. And there were always some animals there, not a lot. And of course, we're starting to see movement of animals. There are going to be issues of bushmeat poaching. When you've got poverty, you're going to have it. Does it impact on the numbers of animals in Kruger National Park? No, because we see growth in the number of animals. Okay, so apart from the drought we've seen in the counts, we see the growth of animals. It's not having a major impact on the bush. You're always going to have subsistence poaching. If I'm hungry, you're going to have it. If you've got to manage it, doesn't mean it's right. We must manage it. Do we believe that the dropping of fences had a material negative impact? No, no fence stops anything. Okay, so elephants, you've got to have there's nothing, elephants other than Ando, no other park has a proper elephant-proof fence. If the elephant wants to leave, it's going to leave. Okay? Okay, that's the way it is. Okay, so it's very difficult to keep elephants in. Okay? So we've got now close to 20,000 elephants, 19,000 elephants. They're going to need space. And they are going to start moving out into other areas. So I don't believe it had any major negative input. In fact, in terms of delivering on what's required for Mozambique in the future and for Zimbabwe, remember there was no fences dropped in Zimbabwe. That was a river. You can't fence the river. It's just those sections on the Mozambique side that were dropped.
Thank you.
We're going to take the second round. You first.
Hey,
Good to see you again.
beating or if they were arrested properly because it's going to be clear.
Dando, my question has got to do with the reasons for poaching. I know that it's not necessarily only the Kruger's, only SANParks' responsibility to find out and to go into the community to sort of find out what the reasons are. But is there a strategy, or is there anything in your strategies that wants to look at the actual reasons, besides saying that it's issues of poverty? What is it that fuels and sort of perpetuates poaching again and again and again, despite all the awareness that you do, all the working with the traditional leaders that you do? What is it that keeps both the rangers and the people outside from continuously poaching?
I want to take one last question, and then this is not a press briefing, so I'll talk. But in the absence of one, okay?
Sure, thank you. Okay, so in terms of the arrests, our rangers have become very frustrated. More and more we're arresting poachers who are out on bail. Okay? And in some cases they are repeat offenders who are out on bail. Okay? We have some magistrates that are doing very well in terms of sentencing, some are a slap on the wrist. So you've got to ask your own question why that is the case. What is the issue there? However, we do track, so we have a system where we track where the court cases are. Once we arrest a poacher on an environmental offence, trespassing, if they've killed an animal, then of course for poaching. Then they hand over to the police. The police do the formal arrest in terms of the criminal justice system. They then take the process through, they do the investigation. We do all the forensics ourselves, so all the forensics on the animals, on getting the projectile out the animal, the DNA, everything, and we hand that all over to the police. From that day onwards, it's out of our hands. So, and we found that what's happening is there's a lot of games today in the court systems. You would have seen this big KZN case recently. It took years. And unfortunately what's happening is delayed tactics continue. The poaching syndicates are funding the lawyers to defend, and the money is no object. There is so much money there. The poacher gets arrested, doesn't care. I'm going to get bailed out, and I'm going to be defended by a good lawyer because the syndicates are paying. Now, on the syndicate issue, I want to touch on this. It comes back to the next question. There's a signboard, and I can actually bring it up here. At the court cases of the three kingpins, two recent ones that took place in Delta, the signboard is release names of those accused. Government can't provide us jobs. Government can't provide us houses. Government can't provide us foods. Those people do. So what we're fighting against is a challenge where people are desperate. So where they can get benefits, they're going to take those benefits. If we can't provide them in other ways, there's now, unfortunately, some of it is greed. A lot of it is not around poverty. A lot of it is around greed and quick money. And I think that is one of the big challenges we face. We are doing more and more research, social research, to understand the reasons for it. And we've got to do more. My concern is if we're spending 250 million rand a year on anti-poaching, if we spend 250 million rand in the communities, would that be a better investment? That's the challenge we face at the moment.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are hosting you tonight. Part of it, we bought you food. Please do indulge. If you've got more questions afterwards, Glenn is here, the head of communications, Janine is here. I'm also here to respond to some other questions that you'd like to pose. Thank you very much for listening to Glenn and